Hey everyone, good evening and welcome to our public hearing tonight. This is a public hearing for an application to install 2 detention basins with outlet pipes and impacts to wetlands in Kent County. My name is Jim Ostrowski and I work in EGLE's Environmental Support Division, and I'm going to be your moderator for tonight. So glad to see you all got logged in. Got about 15 people logged in right now. And we'll probably have a few more joining us as we get started here. So I'm just going to run through a couple housekeeping notes before we get started for the night. First of all, I'm assuming that most of you have never attended a public meeting before online with EGLES. So just to lay it out for you, basically we're going to start with an information session. It's very informal, in which we will have the applicant come up and discuss and basically lay out what they're planning to do. So I'm going to unmute them and that person's going to come up and do that. They're about 10 minutes. After that happens, we're going to open it up for questions from attendees. So if you have questions about it, we can take your questions there. It's kind of informal. If you want to raise your hand or type it into the question box, we got some EGLE staff here that'll answer them, or the applicant can do their best to answer as well. Once we get through the questions at about 6:30 or so, we will switch gears and move into the more formal part of the night, and that's the actual public hearing where you can give us your official comment. So during the Q&A part, that's just informal. It's not for the record. If you have an official comment, that's what you're going to do in the second part, and we'll make that official and let you know when that part begins, and that's where you'll make your comment for the record. We don't respond back. We just listen to your comments at that point. And then we wrap it up and just give you some final thoughts at the very end. Basically, in terms of how it works, all the lines are muted until at which point I say you're unmuted, and then you can make a comment if that's the case. You can submit your questions using the Zoom question box that you have on your toolbar there for Zoom. You type it in and we'll get it. You can also raise your hand if you have a question. We are recording this session just like we do all public meetings, and we put it up on the EGLE YouTube channel. So I'm going to introduce the EGLE staff we have with us tonight. So I'll ask Abigail and Audrey to turn on their cameras and introduce themselves. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Audrey Kirk. I'm the district supervisor for the Grand Rapids office in the Water Resources Division. I'm one of 2 supervisors for our division in Grand Rapids. My programs are known as the resource programs. So my 11 staff covers 6 environmental protection statutes in 9 counties.
Hi, I'm Abigail Brynsma. I'm an environmental quality analyst for the Grand Rapids District Office, and I cover the northern portion of Kent County and Montcalm County.
All right, thanks. So Audrey and Abigail will be hanging out tonight with us, listening to your comments and helping to answer questions. I'll also mention that Joel Roseberry is with me as well, kind of in the background, and you might see him putting some stuff in the chat. So keep an eye on the chat because he will be putting some links in there, and he'll also be helping me unmute people when we get to the comment part. All right, so at this point, I am going to ask our applicant, or the representative for applicant, Kyle Fisker, to come up, and Joel's going to unmute you, Kyle. So he's going to find you, and looks like you're there. So Kyle, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine. So you sent in your presentation for us, and I have that here. So what we're going to do is I'll move the slides for you. So you just tell me when you want to move the next slide. You got about 10 minutes. So if you can try to get done with that time, I'll let you know when your time's up, okay?
Okay.
All right, so go ahead and take it away. Just let me know when you want to switch slides.
Okay. Yeah, like Jim said, Kyle Visker from Land and Resource Engineering. And we assisted the applicant, Bruce Langlois, in the permit application to develop the property that he owns. Next slide. So I'm just going to briefly go over the project location. the description of the property as it is now, the drainage on the property, and then what we're proposing to do for a project. Next slide. Oh, back one. So as most of you probably know, the project location is off of Beckwith Drive in Vergennes Township, north of Lowell. And it on the north side of the site borders, it's Beckwith Drive, and then on the south side of the properties, it's the Flat River. You can go to the next slide. So this is a close-up of the property. Currently, there are 4 parcels that total about 27 acres. It's zoned rural agriculture with a Flat River overlay zoning district on it. The property is currently vacant except for a trailer on the northwest side of the property near Beckwith Drive. The rest of the property is pretty heavily wooded and undeveloped. Next slide, please. So this is the image of the property with some notes on it to explain and show how the lay of the land is and how the drainage is. So there's a stream that runs east to west, it runs east across pretty much the center of the 4 properties. That stream is bordered or surrounded by wetlands on both sides, and it outlets off the property into the Flat River. Those light blue arrows are showing where the surface water runoff is going, what direction. So there is majority of the site drains to the stream. There is a large bluff on the close to the Flat River, which slopes down to the river, that section. Next slide, please. So the proposed project is to have a private road service or provide access to, well, it'd be a total of 8 properties. But the access off the private road would be for 5 of those properties. And there would be 1 stream crossing for the private drive and 2 detention basins. So the location of the stream crossing for the private road was changed actually from the original plan so that it crossed the stream at the narrowest location for the least impact, and to the stream and to the surrounding wetlands. There were the 2 detention basins. There's 1 detention basin. It's going to be on the top of this page. It's a little bit hard to see, but it collects the surface runoff from the road to south towards the creek, And so it collects and treats that stormwater runoff before outletting. The remainder of the private drive goes to a second detention basin, which is near the end of the cul-de-sac, a little bit further. And that treats the stormwater from the rest of the road before it ultimately ends up in that stream. Something to note here on this is the access to the parcels in the center of the property will come from Beckwith Drive. So there won't be any other proposed crossings through the wetlands or over the stream. Lastly, a wetland delineation was conducted to determine the extent of the wetlands surrounding the creek, and that's shown on this plan, kind of the dotted dashed area down the middle. So you can go to the next slide. This is just a close-up of that first detention basin coming off of Beckwith Drive and the crossing of the stream. As I said before, the private road crossing is at the narrowest section of the stream to reduce the impact to the stream and the wetlands. And the detention basin, actually both detention basins are designed based on the Kent County Drain Commissioner standards for pre-treatment, channel protection, and flood control volume. You can go to the next slide. And this is just a picture of the stream and surrounding wetlands at approximately the location of the proposed private road crossing of the stream. On the left side and on the right side of the screen is just a blow up of that property that we showed previously with a star at approximately the location of the picture. So with that, that concludes my presentation.
All right, Kyle, thanks. Good timing too. Appreciate that. Just to let you know, if you didn't see it, Joel just did put in the chat a link to where you can find the documents that were submitted with this application in EGLE's My Enviro portal. So some of those documents may have been a little hard to read, I understand. So you can see everything that was submitted and by going there. Okay, so right now we're going to open up for questions, and I'll have Audrey and Abigail come back up, and Kyle, you can hang out there a little bit, and what we'll do is ask questions. And Abigail, if it's something you're comfortable with asking, or you or Audrey want to ask or answer, I'm sorry, you guys can answer it. If you'd rather have Kyle answer it, you can just redirect it over to him, okay? So if you have a question, you can type it into the question box, or you can raise your hand and we'll get to them. Let's try to get through as many as we can. This first question came in kind of earlier, and so Abigail, it might be good for you to answer. Were the wetlands delineated on the entire property?
The wetlands were only delineated where there were going to be impacts. Seems like there might be some more wetlands up the top right corner, but those have no proposed impacts.
Okay. All right. Next one is Mr. Viskers said the middle parcels would be accessed from Beckwith Drive. Does this mean easements will be added to the plan? Did you get any information about the easements?
So that was something I had originally asked for, so we wouldn't have to do additional stream crossings. There has just not been updated plans submitted with those easements.
All right, very good. Good questions coming in here. So who maintains the stormwater basins after construction?
I might kick that to Kyle or Audrey.
Yeah, I'll kick it to Kyle, see if you
So
Am
Kyle,
I-
if you're there, yeah, who maintains the stormwater basins after they're constructed?
Yeah, so those would be part of the property owners within the that are serviced by the drive. So there would be an agreement that they would have to maintain it.
Okay. Thanks. We've got a person with their hand up. So Carl, you got your hand up, you got a question. You can go ahead and unmute your line and ask your question.
Hi, is it okay to ask questions directly of Kyle?
Well, yeah, you can ask them, and well, we'll ask Audrey if there's something they can answer, Audrey or Abigail, and if they can't, then Kyle can answer it, certainly.
Okay, well, my first question is Kyle, you've been to this property, correct?
Yes, I have.
Okay, earlier you had said that there is one trailer on the northwest corner of the property. Well, one of your drawings shows a building, but there are actually multiple buildings on that northwest corner of the property, correct?
Yeah, yes, I had trouble defining what's a building, what's a trailer, what's there. There's structures of some sort there.
There are
Yeah.
buildings in the northwest corner of that property, if I recall correctly. I think there are multiple trailers and maybe an old vehicle as well. There are also other things that might be concerning. There are some, I don't know how to describe them, fluid receptacles that are just sort of strewn about that part of the property. Does anybody know what's in those? Does anybody know what things might have leaked into the soil? Has anybody done any studies as to what things might seep into the land and eventually affect the wetlands from any of those vehicles, trailers, structures, or unidentified substances that are strewn about that property?
Yeah, I'm gonna let so Audrey and Abigail, are you guys aware of kind of some of the stuff that he's talking about, other structures, drums or receptacles with materials in them? Have you looked at that?
Yeah, we did request that they do soil sampling. We just have not gotten those results yet.
And who does that soil sampling, Abigail?
Kyle or Bruce hired somebody to do that. It was a outside consultant.
Okay, and how expansive is that? Did they dig soil out of one spot? How broad of an area do they cover? There are a lot of questionable areas to that particular part of the property that I think we should be concerned about.
It's only going to be performed where the detention basins are proposed.
Yeah,
So,
Kyle, did you want to just explain any more about sampling that was taken there?
No, I mean, there's not much more to say right now because we don't have the results. But yeah, I guess just restating what Abigail said, the plan is, to have them sampled at the detention basins.
okay, but nowhere else where there are the large tubs of unidentified liquids laying around the different parts of the property. We're not testing the soil around there anywhere to see if there's been anything that has leaked into those particular areas, right?
I can kind of speak to that. So under this application review, it is being reviewed under 2 different environmental statutes, but they are specific to streams and wetlands. So that is our umbrella for review. So we don't have, under those statutes, we don't have jurisdiction under the entire property. It's just looking at the impacts. But with that being said, if there is a potential spill scenario that is discovered, that is something that other divisions within EGLE would be addressing. So specifically, when we have contaminants that discharge to the ground, those are handled by the Remediation and Redevelopment Division. So it's not that we would ignore that if that was discovered during the construction process or discovered tomorrow, if somebody was out there. It's just that it wouldn't be handled by Water Resources Division through this permit review process. There's, if it's in the ground, it's actually the Remediation and Redevelopment Division.
Okay, so I'm sorry to be pedantic, but you talk about the discovery. Who does that discovery if the only thing we're testing is where the detention basins go?
I would assume the property owner, whoever is developing that property, it's in their best interest to clean up any contamination before they're developing it and potentially making it a residential property that people could be exposed to harmful contaminants.
Okay, and I'm sorry to belabor.
Yeah, Carl, one more question, because we gotta keep moving on. So if you got one more question, that's fine.
So we're gonna test the soil at the where the detention basin goes. How far do we project that test is valid laterally? If you call it at the detention basin and that looks good, do you assume that some number of feet from that point away from the detention basin is good, or is it just right there at the edge of the detention basin?
Well, with our sediment testing procedure, there is a procedure online. And so it doesn't necessarily say there's a buffer, that if you take a sediment test here, you're good for so many feet. It's designed to require so many tests per amount of cubic yards of sediment being removed. And so in theory, you could pop a soil sample in one spot and have contamination not that far away. But typically, especially if you've got high water tables, that contamination will be moving. And so it will be picked up. But for our review, the reason we required the sediment testing in the detention basin is because that's where we have that jurisdiction to make sure that if we're digging a basin here, that's not going to expose something that will then pollute the wetlands as that detained water discharges to the stream in the wetland area.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Carl. Yeah, appreciate your questions. I'm going to keep moving on here. So we've got another question that came up. Oops, I just lost my questions there. What was the width of the stream bank full width? What was the width of the stream bank full width? I don't maybe know exactly what they're asking for. Do either of you?
I was gonna say, Abigail, do you know that off the top of your head? It's probably
it was about 3 feet.
Okay.
And that is a question that is asked on the application as well.
So it's in the application materials.
Mhm.
Yeah. Going on with those types of questions, what is the water flow? And is it intermittent, only seasonal, and what's the strength?
I've only been to the site a couple times, and when I was there, it was flowing good, but I don't know what it would be like during a storm event. I don't know if Kyle has any more information.
No, I mean, I've got calculations of what peak flows are at different storm events. And my understanding is that it is somewhat, it doesn't, I don't believe it dries up completely, but there are times, during the dry periods when it very little. But then larger storm events, get a decent flow.
All right, thank you. This is kind of related to the process, Abigail. Can the plan be approved if incomplete?
No, we would need complete plans before it is approved.
Is that something you asked them, the applicant, and then they resubmit more information to you? for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have an overall, this is probably more for Kyle, but if Abigail or Audrey, do you have an overall plan that shows the extent of the grading needed for the driveway?
The plan that we provided shows the extent of the grading, proposed contours.
Okay. And if going back to the question about you're talking about easements, if easements haven't been added to the plan yet, how do we know all the affected wetlands are identified? There are wetlands throughout the acreage. So Abigail, how do you look at the easement and identifying wetlands?
We would need them to submit new plans with that easement, any
Okay.
wetlands that may be affected. And then they would have to quantify it.
Right, okay. We do have a couple more hands raised. So Debbie, you have your hand raised. If you have a question, you can unmute yourself and go ahead.
I think that you guys answered it. I wanted to know who from EGLE had actually put eyes on the property and walked the property. She had answered that. My main question was, I wanted to understand why the other wetland areas were not deemed to be impacted by this project.
Yeah, so Abigail, you want to take that?
Yep. Sorry. So we were only looking at the proposed plans as are. We're looking at the stream crossing, the detention basin, and the small amount of fill that they're putting in the wetland. That's all that we were looking at currently.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Debbie, for your question. And Ken, you also had a question. You had your hand raised. I've just unmuted your line. Ken, if you want to go ahead.
Hey, are you there?
Yes. Go ahead.
I've heard the word flow constantly, water flow. All of us are on wells here in this area. Who is going to guarantee that all water flow is going to be uninterrupted and any of us are going to be affected? And if so, whose financial cost is that going to be? Is Bruce going to assume that? The developer? And then with that flow of the water into all of our properties, can this area sustain that amount of well interference, I should say? Who is the expert on that, and where's the guarantee?
Yes, well, have Audrey or Abigail answer that first or address it.
Yeah, I think I just need to understand it a little bit more. You said you have a well, so you're concerned about groundwater
Yeah, well,
interruption.
100% water flow in any direction from that project there. How is there a guarantee that it doesn't interfere with any of our well-beings?
Well, I guess I would wonder what type of interruption are you?
Where does water flows, right, in directions?
Yes.
So our wells are filled by water flow, right?
Through the ground, yes.
Oh, right. So now we have water flow that moves in a downward direction, which could fill my well, my neighbor's wells, people below me, all of the other houses in that area, which then interrupt my flow, which then is a new well on my cost.
Is the
Who's
concern
going-
the detention basins?
It's all relevant because
Detention basins?
it's all relevant because water flows. I need to know, has there been a study? Who's responsible for interruption or potential damage? Can you guarantee that nobody's properties are going to have decreased value because of water flow and increased expenses to each homeowner? Who takes that responsibility? Who owns that? You on the call? Who is it?
Well, it's not, so the state of Michigan is just reviewing the proposed impacts. So as far as if you'd like us to consider some potential impacts, I guess I would recommend that you kind of put in writing through the public hearing comment process. And Jim will explain how to, and Abigail for that matter, will explain how you can submit written comments. But through this process, with all the written comments that we receive, we actually send those to the applicant and ask them to address them. So if
But-
you have specific questions about, say, is this detention basin going to interrupt the groundwater flow, then I would encourage you to put that in a written comment and we will send that to the applicant to respond to.
Right. Well, we don't hear the person that built that plan saying that there isn't going to be. I want that person on this call to have that transcript because he's guaranteeing it.
Well, and I can definitely, Kyle, I don't know if you have anything that you would like to add.
No, I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, so I think on this, as Audrey was saying, if there's a concern that you have about groundwater flow or disruptions to anything or effects to your property related to the detention basins, as it relates to this application and what's being installed, that is certainly something that you should put into a comment, an official comment, that you have a concern about that, so it can be addressed either by the applicant or by EGLE. So I suggest you do that because I don't think you're going to get an answer directly what you're looking for right now in this particular Q&A, but it is something that they can certainly look into if you put it into a comment or they can refer it on. So I appreciate your question, Ken, though. It's a good question. I got to keep moving on though, because we got some more questions coming in here. Robert, you had a question, you got your hand raised and I just unmuted you. So Robert, you can go ahead.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Hey, Kyle, I was looking at the drawings here and I don't know, this isn't on the record, but I'm the property owner to the west of this here. It looks like the proposed private drive is going to be on that western border, which would go right up against our property as well, right?
Yeah, the entrance, yeah, is on that side of the property in the west side. Yep.
Yeah, so for the first, few hundred feet of the drive there that's going in there, have you looked at any flow considerations? Our side of the property right there is wetlands on our side. So have there been any studies done about the wetland impact that the grading and such might impact our wetlands?
So the wetland delineation we did was did not go onto your property, but our proposed drive does not. We avoided the wetlands on our property, and then as far as runoff from the road, it's being directed in towards the proposed detention basin.
I'm looking at the drawing here. Where is that proposed detention basin on the drawing? I see the one on the south side there. Excuse me, on the east side technically. Is there another one that's on the on the west side of the property?
Yes, so this picture north is to the right.
Okay, hold on. Sorry, I gotta just try to zoom in here a little bit. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so north is to the right.
Yep.
So on the top of your page.
Yep.
right, yes, where the arrow was, is where the one detention basin is.
Okay, that drawing I think is a little bit different from the one that's uploaded online. So let me look at that a little bit better here. So that I mean, I'm just looking at a drawing, but that looks dead smack in the middle of a pretty low wetland area there. So with that detention basin on that side, as well as the grading of the road, I mean, no one's grading a road in here without clearing the trees, 2-3 feet on both sides, or 4 or 8 feet even. That runoff there would flow towards our wetlands. And so that's where I'm wondering what type of impact studies can be done or should be done or have been done, or is there no consideration to our wetlands whatsoever?
EGLE, Audrey or Abigail, do you guys want to explain how impacts to other people's wetlands might be affected before Kyle chimes in?
Yeah, I think that is a valid concern, and we do look, it's not as straightforward as seeing the plans and the impacts, but we do consider secondary impacts as well during our permit review. So I think that's a really good issue to bring up. So thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
and something, Robert, that you probably might want to make comment on.
Yeah,
because this what we're doing right now is informal. It's not for the record, so that's something you might want to have a comment on. Yes.
Yeah, no worries on that. I'm trying to get a bit of an understanding. I mean, I don't know if they've already done it too, Then another question I have is regarding that drive that's going to be going in there. There's in that northwest corner there's a lot of debris and trash and buildings, and I'm assuming septic tanks. And I don't know if it's 1 or 2 or 3 homes, or if it's a pole barn. I really don't know. I mean, are these septic tanks leaking? Is the soil disruption from grading going to release any contaminant? That's kind of a concern of mine as well, because right where that building is marked, from my property, you can see 275-gallon, they're called IBC totes, and they appear to be filled with like an oil-like substance. And I saw on my wetlands, which is downhill, an oily sheen on the wetlands. So I'm concerned that, this type of soil disruption that can occur, not even just from this project, but from, and by this project, I mean the actual, all that's been proposed so far, right, as a road. We don't know what the site plan is going to be like. Where are the homes going to be built? What's going to be the impact from, other people putting drain fields in and flattening it out because they want a front yard. Those are other significant flow considerations for the wetlands that I don't think have been addressed here. And I mean, do you have another set of drawings that shows this is where a house is going to go and this is where the front yards are going to be, and here's how the grading is going to be? Because I mean, everyone who wants to build a house wants a nice large front lawn so their kids can, kick the soccer ball around. And that's a concern of mine as well, on how all of that's going to be, impacted. And I don't know if those documents exist already.
Okay, thanks, Robert. We're gonna let you got a lot there. So I guess Audrey and Abigail, did you want to address some of those concerns? A lot of the concerns, and I'll tell you too, and we don't have time to go through all these questions. There are several questions about things that brought up that aren't necessarily in the plans or we're not seen here, and people seem to have a lot of questions about easements, impact to other wetlands, the driveway. How's that addressed? Is there does new plans get submitted? I mean, maybe you can address all of them at once here.
Okay, we will do our best. Abigail, I was going to see if you had an answer to the question about, do we have the grading for it, or a plan set with the building envelope?
No, we don't have it for the building envelope, but we do have some plans about grading and cross sections and information about the detention basins.
So sometimes when we have proposed developments, sometimes we receive a set of plans that has that information on it. Sometimes we don't. So that is definitely something that the applicant can respond to and provide if they have it. Yeah, sometimes we have the building envelopes and some fill plans, but in this case, we don't have that. It's not necessarily something we need for administrative completeness, but it is an important consideration. So I do think that's a really good point as well. And then I know there was a question about what about if new plans are submitted? All the submissions from the applicant are available through MyEnviro. So there will be instructions on how to access that online. So if anyone wants to, you can always download them from MyEnviro. Regarding whether or not the plans are distributed, again, it really depends on if there's increases to impact. So our process is reviewing the application. If it's an individual permit, we have to put it on public notice. If things change, we will republic notice if the impacts increase. However, if the impacts do not increase, then we will not republic notice it. So it really kind of depends on if the proposed impacts increase or not. But regardless, you can always access new submissions through MyEnviro, through the public portal.
Yeah, thanks, Audrey. So I think that's what a lot of concerns were, like, at what point does this thing get re-noticed? If new documents are uploaded or put in there, is there some sort of notification people get, or should they just be checking back into the portal? How does that work?
That's a good question. It would just be something that they would have to go and take a look for.
Okay. And Joel did put the link there for that for the site to go and look at those documents if you want to. And there was some questions about, I know they brought up, a couple of you brought up questions about totes being on site, sealing oily sheens, concerns about releases. I'm gonna have Joel, if you don't mind, Joel, putting in the number and the contact information for a pollution emergency alerting system. That's the system that any resident throughout the state can use to report any concerns they have of a release that may have happened, and that those get investigated. So it's kind of outside the scope of maybe this hearing right here, but it is something important to that if you are concerned about a release happening anywhere in the state of Michigan, you can report it through what we call the PEAS, the Pollution Emergency Alerting System, on phone, or there's I think an online way you can submit requests to, and those get investigated by the appropriate people here at EGLE. Maybe not Audrey or Abigail, but someone else that can check that out. And so I'm going to take one more question, everyone, and then we got to move on to our hearing. Hopefully we've got most of these addressed here just by going over all that. So Rita, you had a question. If you could, I just unmuted your line so you can ask your question if you want. Go ahead.
Thanks, Fred.
Oops, sorry, Rita. I think you just got remuted. I apologize. I think I might have muted you again. So you can go ahead and unmute.
How about now?
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Okay, thank you so much. So my question is regarding the process. I've never attended a public hearing before. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. And I know you probably aren't excited about spending your Wednesday night on this call, but this is so important to so many people who live in this area. We all bought our homes because of the environment here, and we care so deeply about protecting it. I think all believe that people should be allowed to do on their land what they want to do, if it's not going to hurt something else. And so we're all advocating here for following the law and protecting the environment. Is the process typically for these public hearings to give us the opportunity to comment when we don't have all the information, we don't know. The plan that was submitted that we looked at a moment ago does not show access to parcels 4 and 5. There is nothing on there. Abigail, you said you asked for where the easements will be placed. You don't have that yet. So at some point down the road, you all will decide if the easement that's added to the plan has an impact, and we won't have any opportunity to participate in that because we've had the public hearing now. So is the typical process to have the public hearing before the application is complete?
Well, we would republic notice it if there were additional impacts. So if the proposed easement is going through a wetland area, then we would be forced to republic notice it because that would be additional wetland impacts. If the easement is through upland or non-wetland areas, then it would not be within our jurisdiction to consider that in our decision.
I just want to go on the record saying I feel that that is cheating us a bit in our opportunity here that you've afforded us to be able to comment on the plan, because we're commenting at a time when the full plan isn't available to us.
Yeah, thanks, Rita. Yeah, so like Audrey said, I think if whatever they do submit, I mean, if it impacts something that we regulate, then that's something you look at. But if it doesn't, then is it true to say that'd be more just like somebody putting in a drive anywhere else in the state where there is no wetlands, or how does that work?
Yeah, I would assume there would still be a review if they are connecting to the main road. Sounds like that could be the plan. They would still need to go to the county road commission to have that driveway connection. So there's other pieces where that still gets reviewed. It's just by different agencies, or maybe the local unit of government. So we're only allowed to look at the impacts that are regulated under 301 and 303.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Rita. And I'm looking at some of the comments that have come up. So what our questions are probably more comments that you might want to put on record. And so, looking at some of the things that have come in through a Q&A box, and those are the things that we're going to take next during the public comment period. I want to thank Kyle for taking time to explain the project, and for all of you for asking some good questions really tonight. I appreciate that. What we need to move into now, though, is the actual comment period where you can put your comments on the record. And to do that, it's kind of official. We'll have Abigail read off the public hearing statement. And then what we'll do is we'll start to take comment from you, and you each get time to have your comments for the record. So up on the screen, you see other ways to submit comments. Joel's going to put these links into the chat. I'm going to let Abigail go ahead and start the reading off the, I guess, the official record statement. Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Abigail Brynsma. I am the district representative in the Water Resource Division of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, also known as EGLE. I will be serving as the hearing officer for the public hearing on the EGLE submission number HPJ-YM4C-4QEW8. With me tonight is Audrey Kirk. To describe how this is going to work tonight, I will begin with some background information about why we are here. I will then describe the purpose of the hearing and how your comments will be used. Following that, I will outline the procedures under which we will take your comments, then describe what will happen after tonight's hearing. It will then be time for you to provide comments, and we will spend the majority of the time tonight listening to those comments. At the end of the hearing, I will read the closing statement. By way of background information, the Water Resources Division is responsible for administering a variety of programs that will help protect inland lakes and streams, wetlands, floodplains, sand dunes, and the Great Lakes. These programs regulate certain activities such as dredging or filling a lake, stream, or wetland, constructing a dam, constructing a marina, placing shore protection, or constructing docks, and building in designated critical sand dune areas, wetland, or floodplain. The law governing those responsibilities is the Natural Resource and Environmental Protection Act 1994, PA 451, as amended Act 451. We are here tonight because Bruce Langlois has proposed the following: install 2 detention basins with outlet pipes directed towards wetlands, a 36-inch, 60-foot long culvert for a stream crossing, and a 16-foot by 60-foot of wetland fill for a road, totaling 199 cubic yards of wetland fill at 13100 Beckwith Drive Northeast. A total of 960 square feet of wetland fill is proposed, or wetland is proposed to be impacted. In order for a permit to be granted, EGLE must find that the proposed activities described in the public notice must meet certain criteria set by Part 301 and 303 of Act 451. In general, we must consider the effect of the proposed project on the streams and wetlands. When reviewing an application for a permit under the provisions of Part 301 and then lakes and streams of Act 451, EGLE is charged to make the following considerations as required by: the department shall issue a permit if it finds that the structure or project will not adversely affect the public trust or riparian rights. The department shall not grant a permit if the proposed project or structure will unlawfully impair or destroy any of the waters or other natural resources of the state. When reviewing an application for permit under the provisions of Part 303, Wetlands Protection of Act 451, EGLE is charged to make the following indications as required by Section 303.11 of Part 303. A permit for an activity listed in Section 303.04 shall not be approved unless the department determines that the issuance of the permit is in the public interest, that the permit is necessary to realize the benefits derived from the activity, and that the activity is otherwise lawful. A permit shall not be issued unless it is shown that an unacceptable disruption will not result to the aquatic resources. A permit shall not be issued unless the applicant also shows the following: the proposed activity is primarily dependent upon being located in a stream, wetland, and floodplain. A feasible and prudent alternative does not exist. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to give anyone interested in 13100 Beckwith Drive Northeast an opportunity to provide information that EGLE can use in making the decision whether or not to issue a permit. Please recognize that EGLE can only use the information you provide if it relates to the criteria that EGLE must use in making a decision. Some of you may simply want to express your support or opposition to the project. We will be happy to make note of your position, but please understand that EGLE is by law not allowed to base our decision on whether or not there is widespread support or opposition to the project. In just a moment, I will outline the procedures we will use for taking your comments. But before I do so, I need to mention that the notice of this hearing was published in the Grand Rapids Press and on the EGLE calendar on December 1st, 2022. As we discussed at the beginning of the informational session, if you have a comment to provide, raise your hand in the Zoom toolbar. To ensure that the hearing is conducted in a fair manner, we will follow these steps. First, the applicant and/or their consultant has already had the opportunity to describe the proposed project. Second, we will then call on those who have indicated in their registration that they would like to speak. After that, we will call on those that have raised their hand in the Zoom toolbar that they would like to make a comment if they haven't already been called upon. As a reminder, if you are participating in this hearing via telephone only, follow the directions of your moderator on how to identify that you would like to make a comment. You may also submit your comments to EGLE via My Enviro portal, email, or US mail. When all the comments have been completed, we will ask if anyone else would like to make a statement. When your name is called, your microphone will be unmuted as you begin your comments. Please state your name and any group or association you may represent. Each person will be given 4 minutes to make their comments. We will indicate to you when you have 1 minute left. Please begin wrapping up your comments and end within the allotted time. If need be, we will indicate when your time has ended. I ask that we all be courteous and respectful to one another tonight. Please also recognize that EGLE staff is here tonight to provide a fair opportunity for you to express your comments on the proposed project and listen to those comments. This hearing is being recorded and your comments will be part of the information EGLE will consider in making its decision on whether or not to issue a permit on the proposed project. The public comment period for this public hearing is open for 10 days from the date of this hearing, ending on December 24, 2022. Additional information and comments submitted in writing during the 10-day public comment period will also be considered in EGLE's decision. Following the close of the public comment period, EGLE will make a decision to either issue a permit for the project as proposed or with modifications, or send a letter of denial. You may find out what the decision is by checking the EGLE My Enviro portal website and searching for the application number HPJ-YM4C-4QEW8. Thank you for your attention. We will begin calling the names of those who have indicated that they would like to make a statement.
All right, thanks, Abigail. That was a lot. Just to summarize, basically, how we're going to do this is that I've got a list of names of people when you registered for this hearing. You indicated that you wanted to make a comment. I will call those up, and then once we get through, there's only 4 names of people who officially want to make a comment. Once I get through those 4 names, I will ask to raise hands, and you can raise your hand and we'll call you up. Just a reminder that you have 4 minutes for your comment. I'll be keeping time on my phone here, and I'll let you know when you have 1 minute left. And then after your time's up, I'll let you know, and please wrap up at that point so we can get through everyone's comment. Again, remember, if you don't have time to put your whole comment in, remember you can also submit your comments online through the options that we provided to you, and I'll put those back on the screen here. All right. And just remember, we're not going to be responding back. We're just listening to your comments tonight. So the first person we have up is Adrian Peterson. And then after Adrian, we've got Seth Arthur. So Adrian, we're going to unmute your line. You get started. And again, if you're with an organization, if you're representing an organization, please let us know. And you can restate your name as well. Thank you. Go ahead, Adrian. You can unmute your line. Adrian Peterson, we've unmuted you on our line. You should be able to unmute your line. All right, well, maybe she's not making a comment. Well, that's fine, we can come back. If you want to make a comment later, you can just raise your hand. We're gonna go to the next person, who is Seth Arthur. And after Seth is gonna be Carl Westfall. So Seth, you are unmuted and you can go ahead and start your comment. Remember to repeat your name and any organization you might be with.
Hi, I'm Seth Arthur. I'm with Varnum LLP. I am legal counsel for adjacent property owners. Here to talk about issues I have with the application. Starting first with, we all know that the applicant has to demonstrate that there are no feasible and prudent alternatives under Rule 281.922A2. Yet in this case, there are clear alternatives that exist. First, the applicant could build a bridge over the wetlands and stream. This would cause no impact to the wetlands or the stream, and yet there still would be access to residential lots. So certainly an alternative and a feasible and prudent one. Also, there's variations in site plan and the number of parcels that create a feasible and prudent alternative. There's no explanation as to why the number of parcels in the site plan are needed. The applicant could create parcels between Beckwith Road and the wetland and stream, which would not impact the wetlands. The applicant could create a private drive to run east between parcels 1 and 2 and parcels 3 and 5, giving 5 parcels access to the private road. Thus, there are clear variations that would not create an impact. Rule 281.992A11 makes clear that alternatives can be feasible and prudent even if they entail higher costs and reduced profits. In this case, there are clearly feasible and prudent alternatives. A second issue with the applicant in the application, the applicant suggests that the site plan only requires 0.02 acres of wetland impact. That's incorrect. Based on the site plan, parcels 4 and 5 will need to impact wetlands in the future to construct driveways through wetlands to reach the private road. This will cause more wetland impact and will require more wetland permitting. The application does not address this, so the whole picture is not being viewed. Instead, this appears to be a piecemeal approach. Third, no mitigation is addressed in the application. The application doesn't mention mitigation at all. It also doesn't mention stream impacts. Under the regulations, specifically Rule 281.925-3A1, EGLE's allowed to waive mitigation if the wetland impact is less than 1/3 of an acre, and no reasonable opportunity exists for mitigation. The applicant does not even address the reasonable opportunity for mitigation in this case. However, there are reasonable opportunities for mitigation. First, creating wetland mitigation on site at a 2-to-1 ratio for forested wetland is an option, but not addressed in the application. Second, purchasing wetland credits from a wetland mitigation bank in the same watershed. That creates a reasonable opportunity as well, but also not addressed in the application. So again, the application does not even touch on mitigation, yet the regulations require them to at least speak to the idea that there is or is not a reasonable opportunity exists. I would argue there's certainly a reasonable opportunity that exists for mitigation. In conclusion, given there are clear, feasible, and prudent alternatives, most notably a bridge over the wetlands, given that there are portions of the application that are incomplete, including addressing any mitigation, and impacts of more than 0.02 acres to wetlands are apparent under the site plan, this permit application must be denied. If not denied, it should be at a minimum seriously modified to address the concerns I have mentioned, specifically mitigation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Seth, for your comment. Appreciate that. We're going to go back to Adrienne Peterson and unmute the line again there, and we'll see if you can unmute. Right. There you go. There you go.
Oh,
okay.
There we go. We got it fixed.
All right. You can go ahead and make a comment.
All right. So I'm Adrienne Peterson with Peterson and Vandenberg Environmental. On behalf of Carl and Rita Felsworth, who are the neighbors to the, east, we reviewed the public notice and associated documents for the proposed project and found some items of concern. The application is missing a substantial amount of information. They don't have any of the stream information listed in the application. Some of the wetland impacts, such as a driveway or utility lines to access parcels 4 and 5, was not shown in the plans, which I understand now there's an easement, but I don't know if the utility lines still run through that. The proposed culvert does not appear to meet the bank full width requirement. A bridge would be a better solution for the crossing of the stream and wetland to prevent any impacts to these features. The proposed road requires a significant tree removal and grading adjacent to the wetland and stream. Sedimentation into the stream and wetland will be difficult to prevent. There may be a better alignment of the road, such as to the north of the wetland and stream, that would limit the wetland impact, tree removal, grading, and potential sedimentation. Additional wetlands may be present on site that are not identified. The northeast portion of parcel 2 appears to possibly have wetlands. All parcels should be reviewed to ensure they do not contain wetlands. And there's significant room for the placement of the house septic system within the township setbacks and outside the wetland. The alternative analysis section of the permit application does not address all feasible and prudent alternatives for this project, most notably avoiding the wetland stream impacts entirely by lowering the number of proposed parcels and having access to the parcels from Beckwith Drive rather than a new private road appears to be a clear and valid alternative. The EGLE should verify that each of the proposed parcels has adequate space for new houses, septic systems, and other infrastructure outside of any regulated wetland features, meeting all township and natural river district requirements. The natural river and septic permit should be obtained for each of the parcels along the river to ensure that a home and septic system can be placed on each parcel within the township setbacks prior to permitting a road through the wetland and stream, removing a significant number of trees and grading and destabilizing the area to access these properties. There are multiple concerns regarding the proposed stormwater management for this property. First, the detention basin 2 is proposed very close to the Wellspreads property. There is potential for this detention basin to cause flooding and other severe damages to their property, especially if it was not maintained and overflowed into the stream. It could wash out their driveway. The responsible party for the maintenance of the detention basins and outlet control structures should be specified in the permit application. The stormwater management plan should be reviewed to ensure that the management design will not cause impacts to the wetland and streams or the flat river, such as with sedimentation, water release, funnel point, warming of the water.
You have one more minute.
Okay, based on the review of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife IPAC website, there appears to be habitat present on site for threatened and endangered species, including Indiana bat, northern long-eared bat, and eastern Massasauga. The development of this property will, the grading, the destabilization, increased traffic, human disturbance will affect these species. The permit application states that no other federal, state, interstate, or local agency authorizations are associated with this project. It should be noted that there are a number of other authorizations needed. Overall, we recommend that this proposed project should be redesigned to avoid the wetland and stream crossings or minimize the impact to the extent feasible. The tree cutting and grading areas should be reduced to the extent possible. The proposed stormwater detention areas need to be reviewed, and the responsible party to maintain them is listed. Reducing the number of parcels proposed will reduce the wetland and stream impacts, stormwater runoff.
Okay, that's 4 minutes. Can you wrap up, please?
This reduction will maintain the habitat for the wildlife, including the threatened and endangered species, and ensure the wetland and stream impacts are minimal.
All right. Okay, thank you for your comment tonight. Okay, next person up was Carl Westfall, and after Carl is Rita Westfall. So Carl Westfall, you're unmuted. You can go ahead and make your comment, please.
Can you hear me, Jim?
Yes, we can.
All right, thanks very much. To piggyback a little bit on what Adrian was saying about the endangered and wildlife and those of concern, I think is the term. I take that back to the details that Abigail soldiered through, and I heard a phrase over and over again that kept coming up, and that was public interest. And I just don't see that it's in the public interest to disturb the wetlands that empty into the river and that much of the public lives on downstream from. And I don't think it's in the public interest to disturb the wetlands for these particular species that may be endangered or of concern. As far as the feasible alternatives, both Seth and Adrian touched on those, but I want to point out that Mr. Langlois has sectioned off property and put himself in this situation. He used to own the property to the west of the development in question, from where he could have built a private road at any time while he owned that property and avoided the wetlands in that time. So I'm a big freedom guy, and if you want to make use of your property and make a profit off of it and develop it, do as you please. But I don't think that you should be able to disturb the wetlands against the public interest of everybody who's downriver from you, and against those species that may be endangered or of concern, if there are feasible alternatives, or that you've partitioned away your own feasible alternatives. I had another point here and I kind of lost track of it. So I guess I'll end there because I've lost that other point. Thanks very much. I appreciate everybody's time, and I'll hand it back to you, Jim.
All right, thanks for your comment tonight. Appreciate that. We're going to go to our next person, who is Rita Westfall. So Rita,
Hello.
hi, you're unmuted.
Yep.
You can go ahead and go.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I think that this plan should be denied. It is inaccurate. You've heard others who've made their comments prior to me describe that with the lack of the easement, the lack of the soil samples having been returned, it is incomplete because it doesn't have all feasible alternatives listed. It doesn't have any, and there are a number. I think it is incredibly naive to think that endangered and threatened wildlife will not be impacted by this. I walk with my dog in the woods east of this property line every single day of the year. Yes, I am one of those who walks in a blizzard. We are out there all of the time. No one knows this land better than I do. I have seen these endangered species, all but the Mississauga. There will be impact to them. It is crushing to me to think that a decision could be made without thinking about that potential impact, given there are other alternatives to the plan. The other thing I want to spend a little bit of time on is our driveway. There is a 1,000 square foot pool of water, a pool where the stream collects just east of the property, Mr. Langlois' property. That is on our property. And it is right by the proposed detention basin number 2. We have a 1/4 mile driveway that is the only ingress and egress to our home. And if the culvert is not sized properly, if the storm, if the detention basins fail, we could be trapped here or could be trapped from getting into our home. There is a lot of infrastructure that's in place to keep our driveway here and up going through accessing our home. I really think a lot more information needs to be revealed to be sure that we have protection to our home. And I am very concerned that we learned tonight that the property owner is the one who is in charge of maintaining those detention basins, because I think that Mr. Langlois has proven he is not a good steward of our land based on the artifacts that he has on his property already. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for your comments, Rita. Appreciate that. Okay, that's all the names of the people who, when they signed up, indicated they wanted to comment. So now I'm going to open it up to everyone else. If you have a comment, you can click the raise hand icon on your Zoom toolbar, and I will call on you if you raise your hand. And just like everyone else, you have 4 minutes to make your comment. Again, please remember to restate your name for the record, and also if you're with an organization or representing an organization to let us know that too. Okay, so looking at raised hands here, I got Robert has raised his hand. So Robert, will unmute you and you can go ahead and make your comment.
Hi, thank you very much. So my name is Robert Schindorf, and I am the property owner on the west side of the proposed development. I actually own the property that Carl had alluded that Bruce used to own, in which would have been a alternative option for him to develop the bluff. I have to assume that the interest in developing that bluff is for the maximum financial gain, in which the attorney earlier had mentioned looking at alternatives, and one alternative Carl mentioned would have been to utilize the existing drive that we have. Now, I'm not saying my wife would have ever let me, but there was no approach even to discuss that option with us. And so it appears to me that alternatives haven't been looked at. Again, not saying that we would do that, but so a few points that I have. My primary concerns is that the plans seem to be incomplete and inadequate. It doesn't appear that there has been any consideration given to the adjacent wetlands or the upstream impact on our property. The culvert size, I'm not sure whether it has been sized for appropriate flow from, peak flow. The stream dramatically changes during different seasons. And so I'm not sure how that impact has been analyzed. One of the biggest concerns is that the planning seems to be just incomplete in the fact that while we have the private drive proposal here, there is no site plan. We have no idea where homes are going to be. We have no idea where drain fields are going to be. We have no idea what trees are going to be cleared, the grading of the homes, and how the flow at that point and runoff, which is obviously a huge consideration for any cities when you put a paved driveway in, the runoff from that and how that's going to flow into the wetlands and possibly cause erosion and other damage, and what impact the culvert would end up having from this increased flow. What happens if it collapses? I'm concerned about the grading that's going to occur on that northwest side there because of the potential contaminants that are visible from my property, of the 275-gallon oil totes that are just sitting there exposed to the weather. Their other concern is just in this process. It feels that we've got this public hearing a little bit cart before the horse. I think it was alluded to a little as well, that with incomplete plans and having a public hearing first, how do we have a chance to review and have any professional advisors review what the final plan is going to be with site development and what that impact would be? It'd be terrible to approve a plan for a private drive and then put that private drive in to later on find out that the homes can't be developed because of natural river designation issues or fitting within the envelope of Vergennes Township, or the impacts that those homes might have to the wetlands. So then there's contingencies. What happens, is this going to be built into the purchase agreements for the homeowners that they agree to take on this financial burden if something happens? That doesn't appear to be addressed. So, my ask of EGLE is that we deny the plan as is rather than allow it to be revised, so the more complete plans can be presented. I also am concerned that it says that no other department approval is required when the DNR appears to be the one who regulates the Michigan River natural river designation. And I'm not sure what type of input they have had regarding the potential disruption to the wetlands and to the stream which flows into the Flat River natural river designated land. So I think that's all I have.
Okay. All right. Thanks for your comment. Okay, I'm going to ask if anybody else has a comment. You can go ahead and raise your hand if you have a comment. So give it a minute here. Okay, looks like we do have Debbie has a comment, so we'll unmute your line. Should be able to unmute Debbie. Go ahead.
Oops.
You might have another speaker.
Sorry, my husband and I were just a little bit too close to each other.
Yeah. Okay,
I
you
just
can go
wanted
ahead.
to state my name as Deborah Capsia. My husband and I own the home that is on the, I guess you would say, the west side or the east side of this proposed project. And I wanted to let the record stand that I am requesting you deny this proposal or project. I think it's incomplete. I think that there are a lot of other considerations and a lot of things that are missing. And if your division was to approve this, I think it'd be very irresponsible. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your comment tonight. Okay, opening up. Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment? Okay, I'm not seeing any, and I'm looking. Okay, I see no more hands raised for comments tonight. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn over to Abigail to read our closing statement, and then we'll come back up with just some final remarks. So Abigail, if you like, go ahead and you can read that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and cooperation. We appreciate your interest in the proposed project and that you took the time to be here tonight. As indicated at the beginning of the hearing, you may submit additional written comments until December 24, 2022. Following the close of the public comment period, we will consider all comments received and make a decision on the proposed project. Just to remind those that may still want to submit a comment, comments can be submitted via My Enviro portal, email, or US mail. The hearing is now closed. Thank you again.
All right, thanks, Abigail. And I'm up on the screen and in the chat as well. Remember, there's the links to make a comment in my Enviro portal. If you click on that link, there's just a button you hit on for comments. So if there's something you forgot you wanted to say, you can put it right in there and it goes into us. The comments you put online hold just as much of weight as the comments you make tonight. So just to let you know that if you do have a comment, you can still submit it in. With that, I want to turn it over to Audrey. Do you have any closing remarks, Audrey?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I just wanted to thank everyone for being here with us tonight. It is really good and very helpful for us to hear from you all. So I appreciate you taking the time to join us for this public hearing. And as Abigail mentioned, there's 10 more days to submit comments. So I know during question and answer, there were a couple things that came up where we recommended putting it in writing, and then we can direct that to the applicant. So I would absolutely encourage you all to do that if you still have things that you would like to have addressed. So thank you again.
All right, thanks, Audrey. And thanks to everyone that joined us. Yeah, there are some great questions that came in tonight. I really appreciate those and great comments too. Those do help us. But there was a question that came in kind of late. Somebody was asking about, will the recording be posted? The answer is yes. We record all the public hearings we do, and they're posted up to our YouTube channel. So if you go Google EGLE YouTube, you'll get to our YouTube page and you'll be able to see pretty much on any public hearing you want, including this one. So they're all posted up there. So I want to thank you all for joining us tonight and spend some time to comment and listen in. I appreciate that. Hopefully you all have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.